What you're about to see and hear exists in reality in Jamaica and has become one of the many unfortunate chapters in our young history. Every source of information was found in the public domain and represents only the truth as it exists. Corruption in its various forms is a serious threat to the social order and the rule of law.
Corrupted peoples are really criminals.
Corruption starts at the head of our government system and comes right down.
You know, the governance part, that's where most of the problem lies within the country now.
It's corrupt in such a way that you can't say nothing. If you say something, you're going to get what you don't get. Frankly speaking, that's a truth.
We know everybody corrupt. Jamaica corrupt.
And the whole of them corrupt. The whole of them corrupt.
You know, and who is one of the main reasons for corruption.
We are a corrupt society in so many ways.
We maim, harm, and kill each other too quickly and for no good reason.
The film you are about to see is about a matter of major and growing concern amongst the Jamaican people from all walks of life, of every political persuasion, and as well concern to our friends in the international community. It is about the costs of corruption to Jamaica and to each and every Jamaican. We are truly proud as Jamaicans of our achievements since independence, but we could have achieved so much more had we brought corruption more under control. I am Professor Trevor Monroe, Head of National Integrity Action, and in the next hour, you're going to be hearing from experts dealing with different episodes of corruption that have bedeviled our country and our progress over the last 40 years.
Oh, do I think Jamaica is a corrupt place? Yes, it is. Yeah, very corrupt.
Transparency International give Jamaica a ranking of 3.3 out of 10, where the closer you get to zero, the more corrupt you are. And it actually argues that in Jamaica, corruption is the norm.
Corrupted peoples are really criminals. So, same way as how you define the criminals, the same way you should define corruption.
Where is the money going? What you doing with all these monies?
But many people have reported that the experience of low-level corruption has diminished considerably in recent years. So what the score probably reflects is the continued existence of high-level corruption, which really reflects the way that our political system is still contaminated by links with organised crime.
I think the government needs to be more interactive with the people of the country. I think they need to know what people want for the country and not just decide for them.
In reality, if it was the lower level end persons only in the corruption, I mean, that could have been dissolved a long time. Because the higher level would come in and brute force that. See, if the king is corrupt, then his soldiers gonna be corrupt and his followers gonna be corrupt. I'm not saying the government is corrupt, but I'm saying it is coming from the top end level.
Corruption starts at the head of our government system and comes right down. So it's not, I can't comment on corruption because not that I'm not aware of it, I know that it exists, but where it starts from or where it comes from, I cannot tell you.
My particular concern is the complicity of government and those who are in political leadership and what they should do differently and how they allow things to go by and even contribute to public office being misused.
We have never really go forward with actually prosecuting someone of status with these laws, and I think that is really what perpetuates the crime of corruption, you know.
I feel corruption is not a small man or a big man issue. It's an everybody thing. We are supposed to look into it. You understand me?
Right now, you're having two politicians. You have JLP and PNP. And the whole of them corrupt. The whole of them corrupt.
At the political level, there's a lot of anecdotal evidence and people that speak to you off the record about wanting to do investments in Jamaica, whether local investors or foreign investors, and feeling that either being outrightly asked to pay for services, or feeling that because they were unwilling to, then whatever ideas they had did not get to the top of the chain.
Towards the end of the 1960s, when Jamaica was amongst the fastest growing economies in the world, we received what was up until that point the largest loan to a developing country granted by the World Bank, and we received that loan for educational purposes, to build schools and institutions that would have been able to receive the influx of young people seeking an educational opportunity in the years after independence. The loan did not achieve its purpose as intended. There were immense cost overruns, 100%, which contributed to the beginnings of our debt, and which, had we not had those overruns, we could have built 50 more schools. Reason? Partisan political award of contracts, not on the basis of merit, not on the basis of competence, but on the basis of party connection. And of course, the contractors gave back to the politicians, to the party, kickbacks in appreciation for this political corrupt behavior. Jamaica suffered then, and we continue to suffer now from this political corruption that we need to bring to an end.
Education is a key.
After 5 decades of independence, a lot of Jamaicans have begun to have doubts as to whether independence is a good thing. And when you look at the problems that Jamaica face, you can trace many of them to a weak or a non-performing education and training system. For me, there are two main objectives about an education and training system. And if it is effective, you'll see it in a productive labor force. Jamaica has one of the least productive labor forces in the Caribbean, much more in the world today. Out of a labor force of some 1.3, 1.4 million, over 900,000 have no training at all. Among the thousands of unemployed, many of them have been to secondary school for 4 years or more, and they don't have one piece of certification. The second objective about an education and training system, and if it is good, it does what I would say, build a more socially cohesive society. Everybody has the same learning experience for the first 11, 12 years. They are able to settle disputes without resorting to violence.
Ignorance, I mean, the simplest thing, they will probably blow out and take it out of proportion and act aggressive towards, while other persons with a more intellectual level will probably reason it out. As how we learn in the primary system, talk it out, don't fight it out, the conflict system.
Don't just fight for no reason sometimes. Legal, this thing escalate and they don't have a big fight.
If you are educated, then you will know what to say, what to do, and take a stand. It's not because a politician put a money in your pocket, I put something in your pocket, you can say, yo, I turn a blind eye to certain things. You need to be more educated in doing stuff and some of the things that you're saying.
For the first time in 1953, Jamaican elected Jamaicans became ministers of government. They started to have a bigger say. Up to that time, only 1% was enrolled in the high schools in the country. And so, the decade before independence, Jamaica was well on its way to establishing a first-rate education and training system. On the technical side, the College of Arts, Science and Technology was established. And the technical schools, Kingston Technical, Homewood Technical, Dintle Technical, and then St. Elizabeth Technical, were all given our modern science curriculum. And graduates would feed into the College of Science, Arts and Technology. The effect was there. Within 3 years, Jamaicans were now staffing the bauxite industry. The Jamaican economy grew faster in the decade between 1953 and 1963 than the economy of any developing country in the world. And the prestige of Jamaica was such that in 1966, Jamaica was selected by the World Bank for a very special loan for education purposes. The amount of money is 9.5 million. But place that in context. For the 10 years, or for the period, more than 10 years, between 1953 and 1966, only 4.5 million was spent on secondary education. And you're now getting a loan of 9.5. And what this means is that in one shot, between 3 years, it should have been a 3-year program, 1966 to 1969, you would almost have doubled your capacity for secondary education. The way how we spent it gave education and training a setback from which it has never recovered. The government of the day called in Dr. Arthur Burt. He made one very, very important change to the method of hiring contractors. And that was, whereas before, there was an established panel of contractors, certified, who members of parliament could recommend from, but a panel at the Ministry of Education would have the final say in choosing. That was changed to allow each member of parliament to recommend the contractors who would build the schools in their constituencies. The program lasted not 3 years, but 6. And more importantly, the overrun on the primary school building program was 125%. And the overrun on the secondary school program, 100%. Which means, for the money spent, the Jamaican taxpayer should have had twice as many schools. A new administration took government in 1972, and looking at the school building program and what had gone on, there was a big hue and cry for an investigation. In response to that hue and cry, a commission of inquiry was set up under which came to be known as the Da Costa Commission. Now, the findings of the Da Costa Commission should be read by every Jamaican. And the objective is not so much to remind the population of where guilt or blame is, but to try to make sure that this process is never, and these mistakes are never, ever repeated. Today, Jamaica has a debt of some $1.7 trillion. This debt has been accumulated from the time of the loan for education in 1966. If those monies had all been spent in a way to get value for money, not only would Jamaica be a fully developed country by now, but Jamaica would be able to export capital and assist other countries to develop as well. But we are now faced with this debt of 1.7 trillion, which should have carried us well on the way to economic development by providing useful infrastructure or facilities such as schools and clinics, to provide us with first-rate education and health services. And to the extent that those monies were spent without the Jamaican taxpayer getting value for money, you now have the money to pay back, but with a labor force that is far less able to produce the goods and services competitively to pay that money. And for this purpose, more so than anything else, I would recommend that every Jamaican read the report of the Da Costa Commission just to see how we wasted what I regard as the most important opportunity in the history of independent Jamaica to accelerate the process to provide a first-rate education and training system.
I left my big job in a corporation to run for MP in the last general election, but the people rejected me, yammed me out and heckled me, and marked them X for the other MP. But my beloved party, they rescued me with a big government consultancy. Now I'm a consultant, a big government consultant. I have a contract, a big government contract. US dollars is what I get. Strictly cash, no bunks check.
The consequences related to the corruption in the World Bank loan were that half the schools were built that could have been constructed. Not enough schools were there for the expanding student population, which led to severe overcrowding of classrooms, bad student performance, poor learning outcomes, and low productivity.
But there is hope. Since the end of the 1960s, our people have learned that the political award of contracts on partisan bases and not on competence is hurting Jamaica and holding back our development. Our authorities have set up an Office of the Contractor General and other anti-corruption institutions, which need to be strengthened, but which are a step forward. This is why National Integrity Action is supporting the establishment of a single anti-corruption agency, which brings together the anti-corruption bodies and gives them prosecutorial powers. But NIA alone cannot do it. What can you do? You need to give us your support in the call for a single anti-corruption commission, and each and every one of us needs to be watchdogs to ensure that money borrowed or money gotten from our taxes gives us value for money and does not end up in the pockets of partisan contractors and ultimately back into the pockets of politicians to fight elections.
What this animation shows is the development of two countries, and we've picked Jamaica and Singapore. And you can see in the background there, the year is running like a clock. Singapore is picked out in red and Jamaica is picked out in yellow. And you can see the two economies developing almost in parallel throughout the 1930s, the 40s, the 50s, into the 60s, and there we get to the crucial year, early 1970s, and you can see what happens. Jamaica's development effectively stops, while Singapore continues on a high growth path.
So I will argue that the data put forward by Transparency International speaks primarily to what happened in the formal space, because that is the place you can monitor the most. Nobody tries to study informal space because it's too dynamic and it'll be too expensive. So most of this information coming out is really about what we know as a regular business people. It's not even so much you downtown, you sit on the road doing them thing. You don't have the time for actually doing the research with those people. It costs too much.
So if you take our more moderate estimate of 7.5% and say Well, if we aggregate that cost over the last 40 years, what does that add up to? And it's well over 18 billion US dollars that we've forfeited. Now, what that means is that we're currently one of the most heavily indebted countries in the world. Something like 90% of our current public debt is the equivalent of what crime and corruption has cost us these last 40 years.
In 2011, 2012, almost 1/4 of Jamaica's people lived in squatter settlements. In settlements illegally occupying either government or private land. This resulted from over 100 years of Jamaicans moving from country to town in search of a better opportunity, but without adequate settlement and infrastructure programs. In 1994, the government of the day sought to deal with this problem with Operation Pride. Hundreds of millions of dollars of Jamaican taxpayers' money was invested in this program to regularize the squatting problem. Operation Pride did not achieve its objective to the fullest extent. Why? Numerous irregularities identified by the Auditor General, the Contractor General, as well as a special task force. Irregularities centered around political interference in the award of beneficiaries, in the payment of contracts, which ensured that hundreds of millions of dollars were lost without us Jamaican people getting value for money and sorting out the squatter problem.
And that is why, from the very start, I built a fundamental element in Operation Pride that would make sure we no longer were distributing houses or land based on political affiliation.
Talking about housing in Jamaica and how difficult it is to get a house. I tell you straight up, it's hard. I'm not even put it for say. It's difficult, it's tough.
I came home from my studies in 1994, May of 1994. Heard about this grand announcement by the government of Jamaica to deal with a comprehensive land policy that would alleviate squatters.
People don't want to live in the country. People want to live in a town. And take for instance, like say Mona Common. People don't want to move from there because of some ties. They have a lot of ties there, so they don't want to move.
Well, my parents, I don't think they had a choice back in the day based on their background. So they founded this land and was living on it. It is what it is, a squatter community, because we just found the land and lived on it. So it's not that, oh, we're just squatters. I don't think people even look at it. If you go around and you ask people, you're a squatter, they won't be able to tell you what it is. They just know that they're living, right? So if we could get, or if there is anything in place for us to build up the infrastructure, I don't think it would be known as a squatter's land.
I'm not sure if you really want to talk to me about Operation Pride, because I was a beneficiary as a young professional, and I watched firsthand something that started off as a good idea turning into a corrupt project.
We usually go down by the gully that is in the riverbed, and pack stones. And the money that we should get from that, it go towards the same. What is phone name again? What the thing name again? What I deal with?
I don't remember.
Pride. This Operation Pride thing.
Yes,
right?
Pride.
So over the years now, it's like the whole of us as citizens here, most of us had tally books, and we used to show because we expected to, come out of this doldrum we was living in, because of the plans where them come up with us, to us with,
It was something that was supposed to provide a housing solution. In fact, the model was that beneficiaries were also to be part of the equity, the sweat equity. So whomever had skills, you would put your skills to play in creating the communities.
There was this group, and we started throwing money with the intention that we would get a house somewhere. At least I supposed to still have my book with 11,000 in there. I don't know where that money gone. They don't give out the land. We just have the paper. The paper is to show that we are part of it. We paid our money, and you are one of the beneficiary whenever the program get underway and houses are built or whatever it is.
They came in and said we could join this thing and throw money in a tally book. So it's like we go and throw it by the NCB Bank, which used to open in front of the Shell station there in Ligani.
The project was estimated at around $7 billion, and it should have ran from 1994 to 2007. In 2012, I have heard people saying, I still haven't gotten title. I have paid for the lot that was given to me under Operation Pride, and I still don't know what is happening. I see so many of the Operation Pride sites where the infrastructure work is incomplete. A crying shame.
All right, for Operation Pride, I see a lot of people get help. Seriously. But it's like friend of friends. When I use friends of friends, I use it like this. If you're in a certain community that generates a lot of vote, then that community will get a little help. When we use a little help, like say Rockford community, Pleasant Heights, and them places, because of the strong ties within the political, not here if JLP or PMP, they will say, all right, then we are push out things to help them people there, to have them own house. You understand me? And everybody Operation Pride help. It's not everybody Operation Pride help.
There was a lot of interference politically, because I witnessed firsthand in some cases procedural irregularities. If you're part of a project and you have the minister assisting, because when this is government driven and you're looking to who is at the helm of it for assistance, and then you realize sooner than later that even as you seek to build communities through these Operation Pride, you're building a nation. Part of what went wrong with Operation Pride, there were a lot of informal contracts. So what is the scope of the work to be done? Who knows? At what cost it is to be done? Who knows? As long as at the end of the day, some of the workers in my constituency or some of the people who support me politically are given the work.
Many things went wrong, and a lot of Jamaican money has gone, government money has gone down the drain. We actually have one case in court for overpayments, and there are several others that if the evidence could be put together, should go to court. The fact is that in many cases, the bundles seem to have gone into a deep dark hole.
There is this expectation that once government work is available, it's going to be time for the supporters of the political party to get work with no reference to their competence, and especially in buildings. Every man is a builder. What is the standard at which they're building? Who knows? Road work, everybody can do it. Talking about the infrastructure side now of a project like Operation Pride, where roads have to be put in, water pipes have to be laid, whatever, the full works. And so many people, I have seen people on sites who have no competence, really no competence, doing technical work.
People are moving out of the area largely because of crime and violence, but importantly, because of the lag time in terms of infrastructure, road, water and light.
Has enough been done? Of course not, because we're still suffering from a project that meant well but has gone wrong. And what is even worse for me is that we do not learn the lessons. And so you have other projects coming on and you see the same things being done. And the cost gets greater and greater. Corruption, development, or democracy, there is a link. If you are tasked with the responsibility of doing something, you must be held accountable for it. And if that accountability includes, at the end of the day, a prosecution, then by all means.
We don't even know where we stand right now. You see, cause me fight me struggling and build up my little house here. My family help me, my children them help me. We don't know where we stand.
One, the serious problem is the land title. Because once we get the land title, then persons will start to develop their infrastructure. And once the infrastructure is in place, then other bodies will come in to Mona Command, giving the persons, the citizens, a sense of responsibility. So persons will have to go out and get a job and educate themselves, make sure so everything is happening properly. So the land title will be one, the education level on both schooling, teenage pregnancy, parenting, the roles of the government and the roles of we, the citizens.
The consequences of the corruption related to Operation Pride are the continuation and expansion of island-wide squatting, the facilitation of criminal enclaves, the frustration of inner-city residents, and the hundreds of millions of dollars lost that should have gone to solving the housing crisis.
Operation Pride lost Jamaican taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars and failed to impact the squatter settlement issue as much as it could have. This harkened back to the late 1960s with the World Bank education loan, where once again numerous irregularities, at the heart of which was political interference, impacted Jamaican taxpayers not getting value for money. This time, sanctions did apply. The minister resigned, the permanent secretary resigned, and 13 persons were indicted. But this is not enough. National Integrity Action calls for more severe penalties to be attached to violation of Jamaica's procurement guidelines so that we may put an end, once and for all, to politically motivated corruption and the loss of value to Jamaican taxpayers.
You have to find a way to lock up people who are involved in corruption, both at the government end and at the private sector end. And the only way to do that is to give prosecutorial powers to an anti-corruption agency.
You can't point on a leader, because you're going to say it's liable, you're going to get charged for libel. If you point on him and say, you used to give me a gun, you're going to say, you have any evidence of that? You can't prove it. So right away you're going to prison. You see who are going to prison are the victim who got to prison.
Although the legal system is good and is righteous, takes so long to achieve an objective and to make a declaration in a case that may be brought. And I take, for example, an OLINT and a Cash Plus. Whereas in Jamaica, we have gone nowhere with Cash Plus and the people that were involved. In America, Madoff has gone to jail for X number of years, certainly in excess of 100. And David Smith has been found guilty and gone to jail.
Between 2010 and 2011, David Smith, a Jamaican national, the head of Olint Corporation, a Ponzi scheme, was tried and convicted in the courts of Turks and Caicos, as well as in South Florida. Court documents revealed that Smith benefited to the tune of at least US $220 million. His main victims were Jamaicans, thousands of us who put our well-earned income into this Ponzi scheme. In 2006, Jamaican professionals at the Financial Services Commission issued a cease and desist order to Smith. They were supported by the government, but opposed by politicians on both sides of the aisle. It turned out subsequently that Smith had given millions of US dollars to the Jamaica Labour Party and to the People's National Party. Could there be a relationship between those political donations and the fact that Smith was never prosecuted in Jamaica, despite the fact that Jamaicans were the main victims of his criminal activity. We do not know. But what we can say, and what National Integrity Action proposes, is that Jamaica needs robust campaign finance regulations laws that would ban organizations like OLINT from making contributions to our political process. In addition, such legislation should reveal to us those who are making big contributions to the politicians and the political parties. Why? Because you and I know, he who pays the piper calls the tune.
David Smith pleaded guilty to 18 counts of money laundering, 4 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit money laundering.
Did David Smith trade foreign exchange legitimately? Well, there has never been any finding of that. And not from the perspective of the FSC. We saw no evidence of that. Sometime in late 2005, information came to the FSC about an entity carrying on this type of business. When we looked at what we had, this was definitely securities business, and under the law, the Securities Act, you need to be registered and the entity has to be licensed to be carrying on these activities. The FSC conducted a proper investigation, which started in January of 2006. It was completed early March 2006, so within 3 months, the investigation was completed. In order to get additional information and utilizing the powers vested in the FSC under the FSC Act, we did a search and seizure operation on several locations. And from that, we seized records. In March 2006 also, as soon as we issued the cease and desist order, simultaneously with that, we sent the files to the DPP's office for them to do their review with the hope that they would find it possible for prosecution to be brought against Mr. Smith and others. A part of what we asked for was no further funds flowing into these schemes, and they were able to pay out. Now, that's universally what is done. A goodly judge that heard that matter decided that OLINT could continue to accept funds from current investors above the strenuous objection of the FSC, because we knew that this is a way for funds to continue to flow in and to widen the base, the investor base, but we were unsuccessful. In terms of how OLINT grew to be what it grew into, that has to be explained by the proliferation of the feeder funds. What is a feeder fund? A feeder fund is a sidekick to the main Ponzi scheme. It is the process by which you have sort of a smaller Ponzi scheme. It's a Ponzi within a Ponzi. In this case, the media was also biased, because now in hindsight, many inside the media houses were also investors, and they had an interest to protect. And the following that they had, these are not the people with millions of dollars from cherry gardens, etc. These are the people who are going to be pooling together every little penny or resigning from their jobs so that they could get access to their retirement fund to put into these schemes. That's how wide it went. Our vindication came from these other jurisdictions, some very mature jurisdictions, who were able to take the very same work that the FSC did. Because under our laws, and this is where I have to credit Jamaica, we talk about everything else and what is bad, but what is also good, just like we have the freedom of the press here, there are laws on the books that, if utilized properly, can actually get good work done. And the FSC did that. We were able to use sections of the FSC Act to cooperate and collaborate with foreign jurisdictions in order to help them bring Mr. Smith to book.
The consequences relating to the Olin case were that billions of dollars were lost to Jamaica's GDP. There was the ruination of hundreds of professionals, proceeds of crime donated to political parties and politicians, and the worldwide reputation loss of the Jamaican justice system.
But all is not lost. After years of advocacy by Jamaicans from all walks of life and from organizations in the private sector and civil society, the Electoral Commission of Jamaica, following much consultation, produced a report recommending robust campaign finance reform, including the banning of Olin-type organizations making contributions to political parties, including limits on what parties can spend, including limits on how much may be donated to a political party, and very importantly, recommending disclosure of those who give big money to the political parties. Happily, the Parliament of Jamaica in March of 2012 adopted this report in a historic move, with concerns and with reservations. The government has indicated that they intend to have campaign finance reform on the law books by March 2013. But you and I know how much delay there can be in the legislative process. We therefore need to come together, National Integrity Action, and each and every one of you, to demand that this legislation be on the law books before March 2013. No more election must take place in Jamaica without campaign finance reform.
Right now, it's the government, them boy, John, I don't know what, because them tell her one thing and them still do the next thing. So come like everybody else a grab. From top, everybody a grab. So you find it's a little small man now, he have to try to grab a thing for himself, you know.
Our politicians are more interested in getting into or staying in Parliament in power than delivering on the promises that Jamaicans need delivered on.
The guy who is them, which sound like we, a fight against them, JPS, which is the government where we put into place, which is Palwell, which is him. Inside with them, against the people them, who the people them did not look on him and say, but look how them do to we. So if he say they have a friend up there, like you know what a friend we have in Jesus, it come like we don't have no friend up there, so because them become them and them side up now with them and then now we there, so now still I wonder how the light bill go.
On September 1, 2011, Christopher Dudus Coke pleaded guilty to conspiracy racketeering charges in a Manhattan court in the United States. In June the following year, he was sentenced to 23 years in prison. Court documents reveal that Coke was involved in gun running, narco-trafficking, and in murder. A long line of politically connected criminals like Zeke Phipps and Donovan Bulby Bennett, who were evident in the Jamaican political scene. For Coke to be extradited, a state of emergency had to be declared after Coke's supporters attacked the security forces. Thereafter, the response of our security forces led to the deaths of over 70 persons in the community of Tivoli Gardens. Regrettable, but the Jamaican state and people had no alternative but to declare a state of emergency in response to an attack on the society. What this demonstrates more than anything else is the extent to which political criminality was embedded in our country and the degree to which crime and corruption are among the most problematic factors preventing investment, national and international, from creating jobs, generating income, and growing our economy.
An entire nation brought to a standstill.
Politicians who used to give the youth them gun and when them can't control the youth them because a bigger man now, them have visa now, them can go and make deals with the people them over foreign and make them get them own gun and them own drugs come back to Jamaica, control up certain money and things. Politicians can't control them, yet the politicians say, that man is a done man, we have to get rid of that man. You know, see it?
A Don is simply put a crime boss, a powerful criminal figure who typically heads a gang, or better still, an organized crime network. They have access to considerable resources and therefore enjoy a measure of status and standing in their communities, which allow them to establish relationships with critical institutions, including political parties. The powerful crime boss, the Don, is able at times to project an image of being legitimate. This, plus the power, distinguishes them from the ordinary petty criminal. Now, if I may say something about their relationship with the community, of course, this is closely related to their relationship with the party. They use the wealth and the political influence to embed themselves in the community. So a number of these Dons, Coke including, ran welfare projects within the community, from basic school, funding of basic schools within the community, computer training for young people who have left school and so forth. So if you saw in the events, final events leading to the operation in Tivoli Gardens, there were demonstrations, I believe some 800 women in white demonstrated in support of Coke, we will die for Coke and so forth. This is because of the benefits that the community derive from their presence, their protection, their welfare, and other benefits such as access to utilities, free utilities. The JPSCO, for example, estimated that in June 2010, at the time of the operation in Tivoli Gardens, only 1% of the residents of Tivoli Gardens actually paid utility bills or paid light bills. Coke, like so many other powerful criminal dons, remained at liberty for a long time because of, in a word, their relationships, in two words, their relationships and the weakness of the criminal justice system. The relationship with the party provides them with access to opportunities for enrichment, accumulation of considerable wealth through contracts, typically construction contracts, and offering of services to government of various types. These contracts may run into tens of millions, in some cases, hundreds of millions. Secondly, it's protection. The party affords them access to a wide range of contacts and relationships with lawyers, highly skilled lawyers who are willing to work and to represent them, access to a network of communities across the island, which helps to facilitate their business and indeed to spread crime throughout the island and abroad. So the wealth and the protection that they get from the party insulates them and affords them this degree of impunity, if you wish. The evidence that is available to us suggests that Coke's organization was well prepared. Right? This was a place that was highly equipped to deliver violence. As I recall it, the community was highly mobilized many weeks before the operation, with an elaborate system of lookouts and guards and so forth. One estimate that a professional brought to my attention was that perhaps maybe as many as 400 persons were involved in the defense of Coke, the defense of Tivoli, and I mean armed defense now. Mop-up operations following on Coke's arrest. As I recall it, almost 100 weapons were found. including 45 rifles, a number of explosive devices, grenades, 50 caliber shells, pretty sophisticated stuff. I believe that the Jamaican government eventually agreed to sign the extradition order because there was a confluence, if you wish, a convergence of pressures from two sources, one external, one internal. The external pressures were relentless and came from the US administration, which is very powerful. US is a very powerful country in the world. There was also considerable internal pressure. Internal pressure from the opposition political party, which is bad enough for any political administration, but equally importantly, pressure from civil society. There was a partnership which involved the PSOJ, represented employers, it involved the unions, and it involved other elements of civil society. And the partners at that point during the Dudus crisis, I believe, stopped attending the meetings and signaled to government that if you wanted this collaboration to continue, then you would have to sign the extradition order. Also, there were elements of civil society outside of the partnership that clearly expressed their opinions and demanded that the government sign the extradition request. And I believe that these pressures came from these organizations and from public opinion because people were well aware of the corrupt relationship between Cook and elements in the administration. So these two things combined, I believe, forced the administration to sign the request.
The consequences of corruption in the Dudus case were that the link between politics and organized crime was clearly revealed. There was a stranglehold of dons over community life, no freedom of speech or movement because of violent intimidation of citizens, resulting in a serious fall in Jamaica's international standing.
What the Coke extradition, conviction, and sentencing demonstrates more than anything else is no matter how strong the political connections, no matter the level and length of political corruption, the Jamaican people, the Jamaican authorities, in association with our development partners, can defeat political corruption and political crime. But for this to be done, national integrity action supports what Jamaica requires: robust laws and law enforcement to outlaw political intimidation in any community, to outlaw gangs and gangsterism, and to hold culpable those who are connected to the gangs and facilitating gangsterism. It requires community renewal to empower the people in inner city communities. But most of all, Jamaica requires each and every citizen to speak out, to have their voices heard. Were that not the case in the Coke extradition, the government would not have been forced to reverse its position, to extradite Coke, and to ensure that organized crime suffered this major defeat.
I think the government, they can create more open doors for people to be more innovative, because you have persons on the streets who are not fully occupied in what they do.
If the people who we are looking up to and who we have voted in to lead us do not do and are the right thing and are not accountable, why should anybody else be accountable?
So me as a Jamaican, I stay straight. Me I try to curve my thing, me I try to put it in my youth them, for curve it, and me I try my best. I know me alone can do it, but me still I do my part.
So we need some intelligence, and within intelligence we need a sort of philosophical idea that is continued and perpetuated in the media, because this is where the youth them latch on to know information.
Also, if they get something for the children them to do, it will help to cut down the crime in the country.
Now that you have heard from our experts and from the commentators how much corruption is costing Jamaica, how much it is holding us back from building on our immense achievements, where do we go from here? I can tell you where NIA is going. We are going to continue building awareness through films like this one, through town hall meetings where we hear from you. We're going to be continuing to insist on urgent passage of campaign finance reform legislation and the establishment of a single anti-corruption commission. But NIA alone cannot do it. We need the help of our international partners to ensure that the taxes which their taxpayers pay in order to help us here in Jamaica reach the target. But most of all, we need the help of each and every one of you. Get involved with NIA. Call our office to report whatever you see that looks corrupt. You be a watchdog, be a searchlight. Visit our website. Help us to make Jamaica the place of choice, to live, to work, to raise families and to do business, so that sooner more than later, we get the Jamaica that we are capable of achieving with the talent of our people.
And medias like this need to send out information properly. And don't edit out everything we say. Yeah, that's
The following are excerpts from messages to NIA published in NIA's first anniversary supplement from the Governor General, the Prime Minister, and the Leader of the Opposition of Jamaica. I unequivocally support the urgent message of the NIA and every one of us to close ranks against corruption. We must win the battle against corruption so that Vision 2030 may become a reality and this beautiful land fulfill its destiny of playing her part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race. We have and will continue to support the aims of the NIA, and the nation can be assured that this government will continue to strengthen legislation on good governance, accountability, and transparency as part of a determined effort to detect, deter, and punish those caught and found guilty of corruption wherever such acts occur. I'd like to congratulate the NIA for your efforts to combat corruption. You have brought to the forefront the absolute need for honesty, decency, integrity, transparency, and accountability in all our proceedings and processes. You've done a great job in enhancing the public awareness of this challenge.
Oh, it's a dog-eat-dog world. Oh, what a la la la. It's a dog-eat-dog world.